Let's get started.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Welcome back, Professor. So we're going to have to race through these. Anything that seems more than moderately complex, I'd be happy for you to take it on notice. On the 2nd of February of this year, the NHMRC announced via your website that there are two proposals under consideration for targeted calls for research, TCR. Tick-borne and Lyme-like illness, which this committee had a fair bit to do with last year, and myalgic encephalitis, ME/chronic fatigue syndrome. Tell us what happens from here with those two proposals. Do you fund them both, or is there some triaging underway?
Thank you, Senator. It's Professor Anne Kelso, CEO of the National Health and Medical Research Council. So, Senator, thank you very much for that question. It's true that we've provided a pathway for community and professional groups to nominate topics that can be considered for a targeted call for research. So we have several different pathways for such topics to be brought to us, and for an expert committee then to go through those proposals and prioritise them and give advice to our research committee on whether they should be put forward for consideration as a targeted call for research. So as you say, we received suggestions of targeted calls for research around ME/CFS and also Lyme-like illness in Australia. So both of those proposals have been looked at carefully, and at this stage we need to refine them further, and we're going to need to have expert advice to be able to decide whether and how they should be supported for research. The difficulty at the moment is that, and the two cases are quite similar to the extent that these are syndromes for which there isn't a clear clinical definition, there aren't clear diagnostic tests, there aren't established treatments and methods for looking after patients, which is exactly why there's a need for research.
That's right.
But the scope of the research that's needed to address all of those issues for both of those complex illnesses is very, very broad. And so we're going to have to find a way to target the research so that it can be effective with the funds available. So there's more work to be done, and a decision hasn't yet been taken on whether and when those will be funded.
And can you tell us what your timeline is for decision making?
So we don't have a specific timeline. We're working through a number of such proposals. Okay. So I can't give you a date today, but it's work for this year to decide how to progress.
Okay, so some of the advocates from the ME/CFS groups, the one that I'm aware of anyway, are actually very concerned that any delay after the next round of submissions in April may mean that these folk drop off. So can you assure us that that's not the case, that they're still very much in consideration for funding?
Yes, they are still in consideration.
In terms of the experts that you would consult, could I draw your attention to the work of this committee, thank you, from last year that Senator Seawitt chaired, you're no doubt aware of that, in which some of these experts were brought to the table. And also whether or not, I've brought, I think, to your attention before the work of NCNED and Griffith, the unit at Griffith University, who are doing superb work on diagnostic criteria for ME/CFS. Would they be among the experts that you would consult as part of this funding round? And the reason that I raise that is that they are very, very close to diagnostic criteria. They've had some breakthroughs that have been heralded around the world.
The full range of expertise, including those people, would be considered for forming a panel to advise us. Okay. But in that case, they may well be applicants, so that creates an interesting situation for us, because we would want the very best people to be able to apply for funding, for support. So we have to work very carefully with conflicts of interest to ensure that those who are advising us on what should be funded aren't exactly the people you want to have doing the research. But we're aware of the work that's being done at Griffith, and really delighted to hear that there's an important advance being made.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting the wind up by the chair. So this is probably going to stray into the realm of on notice, but the other thing that I'm interested in is, as we move from diagnostics to treatment, we're going to need to skill up the nation's GPs, who at the moment, there's obviously a range of views in the GP community about whether this is psychosocial or rather than biomedical. What is the process for funding education programs for GPs and distributing this research that's being done, so that we can winnow out some of the frankly, quite harmful treatments that have been proposed.
Senator, that's beyond the scope of the National Health and Medical Research Council, so I'm not really qualified to comment on
That's
that
fair
at all.
enough. Minister or Mr Secretary, can I throw that one to you and on notice, seeing as how we're out of time? In the specific case of when you've got diagnostic criteria being identified for conditions such as this that's been out there sort of in the cloud for a while, is very poorly understood, how do we get that information into the hands of GPs so that people are properly diagnosed?
We'll take it on
Take it.
notice.
Yeah.